Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Richard Sachs, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at the University of Rio Grande and Rio Grande Community College. And I'm delighted today to have as my guest Kingsley Meyer, who's the Director of Campus Computing and Networking, and next to him Caleb Bevan, who is our newest hire in the CCNN office. Can you both give a little bit about your background? Kingsley, you've been here for more than a quarter century.
That's a kind way of saying I'm the old man.
Okay.
Good day. I'm Kingsley Meyer, and I've been at Rio Grande for 29 years. We founded the Office of Campus Computing and Networking when higher education moved beyond Blackboard and textbooks to using online resources. The library here at campus needed to take the card catalog and make it electronically available to other state-supported schools. And so the state of Ohio allowed us to connect to OhioLink, and that opened us up to having an internet connection. And it's now been many years. We have roughly 1,000 computers on campus, and at any one particular time, Rio is hosting about 22 to 2,500 active accounts and users. That's both our students and our employees. So it stays pretty busy.
Great, thank you. And next to Kingsley is Caleb Bevan, who's a Rio Grande alumnus. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, high school background, and what you majored in here?
So I majored in computer science here at University of Rio Grande. Before that, I had attended the Washington State Community College in Marietta, Ohio with a associate's degree in computer support technician. And before that, Meigs Local High School, which is one of our local area high schools.
Right. And we are pleased to have 10 public high schools in the 4 counties, including 3 just in Meigs County, and including Caleb's high school alma mater, Meigs High School. So Rio Grande provides a number of technologies for students, and just the same way when you go to a restaurant, it's the waiter or waitress giving the food to you, but there's the person who bought the food, there's the chef, there's all these other steps. We could not deliver our academic programs without a really strong computer support network. And for a college of about 2,000 to 2,200 people, the average size of the office should be around 9, and we have 4. So these people do Herculean things on a daily basis on all 4 campuses. Can you guys start to talk about the kinds of technologies that Rio Grande provides to its students who come here to study?
How about if I take that one?
Okay.
Rio Grande itself is very well connected in terms of the internet. We have both wired and wireless networks throughout all of the buildings. Even outside in the athletic areas, we have wireless connections. But probably the most important thing is that when people come as a student or a new employee, they say, I need an email account. We call that a RioNet account. And a RioNet account means that you have access to email, and you can use those credentials to get yourself onto Blackboard. You can get yourself onto our wireless network. So we start with a worksheet telling our students their username. We give them a default password, and we lead them through a password change process. It's pretty simple. It is just 3 steps. So after that, we usually hook up people's telephones and their mobile devices, because we're trying to be as friendly with that as possible. And the rest of the technical part of being on a network is hopefully something you shouldn't have to worry about. But getting your account, being able to use it is the first place that I think we need to go.
You made a great point there. It's kind of like when I buy a new set of tires for my wife's car, and I want her to tell me about how the tires have great grip, and I'll say, how are your new tires? And she'll go, well, they're not flat. And I think our usage of computers is very similar. We don't even notice how well it's working until it stops working. And I know I've had enough discussions with Kingsley over the years that 30% of the time it's like, did you turn the power button on, or something just that simple. What kinds of computers and mobile devices do you recommend? Because I know there's so many different platforms now and so many different ways that people can access this electronic environment.
I'll handle that question. Pretty much any OS is acceptable as far as your Apple, your Microsoft, your Android. Our major concerns with that are mostly stuff like your Chromebooks and your netbooks that are a little lower end, that are not as powerful. They can't run stuff like Microsoft Office, and that's our biggest concern going with a lot of these devices.
Okay. And I know for years I've known BYOB means bring your own booze.
Beverage.
I thought it was booze. Bring your own bottle? Okay, bring your own beverage. I don't have to bring alcoholic beverages.
No.
Wow, that opens up a whole new area of possibility. I'll have to reflect on that. But I see you guys talking about BYOD. Can you talk a little bit about that? What's BYOD and why are we doing it now?
So it's bring your own device. So that could be anything from, this Apple laptop, your iPad, laptops, phones. And ideally, if you're coming to campus, a laptop is preferred. It handles Microsoft Office the best of anything. It's the most compatible with our printing services here on campus. And at that point in time, the next best is probably your items such as, tablets and e-readers, because those work well for textbooks and stuff of that nature.
So if our RIO students bring their own devices, does our RIO print areas support those devices?
Back to me on that one. Printing from wireless devices is one of the more challenging things. Because they're personal devices and they're not physically connected to the same network that printers are, we have a wireless printing service that is at a website called print.rio.edu. We have a slide of our area where we drag a file from our operating system file area, and from there we can choose any printer on campus that's network connected, and our print servers will deliver that file to the printer and print it for you. Now, a little word of caution on that. Printing from a phone, if you don't know how to get the browser window up on a small device and tell it this is the file that you want, can be challenging. So on a Mac or a Windows laptop, things work great. The iPad that Caleb had over there, it actually has an app, a specific app, so that you can select the files from the application. But Androids, you have to use it from the browser, and if you don't know where those files are on your system, it makes it a little bit more challenging. And that's going to lead me to something else. We talk about a paperless environment. We talk about whether or not a campus should be doing things from the cloud, using the services that are available in our learning management system, or being able to just submit documents to our professors and instructors. There are some faculty that are still old school, and I don't have to tell you about that, sir. But it is nice at times to actually look at that paper, be able to mark it out, and then be able to see where the corrections and edits are. So the idea of submitting a document through a Dropbox in the learning management system, or being able to send it as an attachment to your email, we practice that, we do it with our students, but it hasn't necessarily been a routine process for all faculty in all classes. So incoming students, we're going to show you how to use these tools. We're going to ask you to practice with it, but pay attention to your faculty members' syllabus and their instructions on how you should be submitting things. But the other thing is, we have these, mobile phones, and you can install Word and Excel and PowerPoint on them. That doesn't mean that you should be using your thumbs to type a paper. The formatting in APA style or Turabian or MLA is very specific about margins and indents, and it's just not the same context when you're using those devices. Tablets and mobile devices are great for consuming content. They're horrible for producing content. So Caleb mentioned laptops are great. If you're not using one of our computer labs on campus, You can still use your own on our wireless network. Keyboards are great. Get used to it.
That was wonderful. And when I teach classes, which I generally try to teach a class about once a year, I would love to grab you and have you say that to students, because they seem to want to do so many things nowadays from their cell phone. And I can honestly say, when I'm traveling, I can quickly respond to emails by cell phone, texts, phone calls. But when there's an attachment, and like ODHE wants me to fill out a survey and say what we're doing for Rio Grande, I don't even try to open that up on my cell phone. Now, I'm going to wait till I get back to my laptop so I can open it up and read it and respond and do it. And I don't think your cell phone has to be all things to all people, but I think for some students, you're right, they think they can write papers on it, and I think they're missing part of the educational purposes of the assignment.
I think we've jumped over some some things, and you're right. It is good to notice that you've got an email, you see that there's a file to be downloaded, you look at it, and it needs to have some sort of response. The device that you're using may not be the most appropriate for putting in that type of response. What we want to make sure is that we understand that I got the mail. I need to go to a more appropriate device so that I can get the keyboard, open it up. It may be more mouse and touchpad appropriate for selecting where you're going to be working. And we're used to using multiple devices. If we think the whole world is going to be in our pocket on a cell phone, we probably need to have a second thought about those things.
Okay. So I appreciate how you said students should come to know their faculty members' syllabus for the particular course and submit assignments in whatever acceptable formats are defined there. For the students who are still printing out papers, can you talk about the print budget for students and Print Manager Plus? I know I've had to adjudicate some of those issues at times when professors might have like a 70-page syllabus and they're telling students to print it out rather than get copies of it.
I started with Print Manager, and I'll continue on this one. We give a budget of $20 at 5 cents a copy for about 400 copies. We find that for almost all of the departments, that's adequate to turn in your assignments. If you get if you have a course and your instructor is saying, here are PowerPoints that go with the book, you will find that that's not enough. PowerPoints can be viewed on a computer. You can save them to your OneDrive cloud storage. You can download them onto your e-readers and your tablets. Maybe you need to reconsider printing 400 pages of big slides that you'll only look at for a short time in that term. And that's one of those things that we as an institution and as instructors need to understand. Don't tell your students to print all of the slides to take notes. You can open up Notepad or Microsoft Word, write your notes, but still look at the original slide content on an electronic device.
Right.
Blackboard's going to display the slides for you.
Sure. Okay. One concern that I know everybody seems to have nowadays is cybersecurity, cyber safety, and various things that we're doing to try to maintain that. I know I came from a meeting with the CFO a couple hours ago, and my cell phone rang, and I looked at it, and it was 937, which is Dayton area, and I thought, well, that's not Tom Lasley, the education dean at Dayton, and I don't recognize the number. Well, I had forgotten I had tendered an offer for a faculty member who lives in Dayton now, and as I was sitting there ready to open up the answer the phone, the CFO was saying, "Don't touch it, Richard. If you don't know it, once you open it, let the person leave a message." So I said, "You're totally right, Tim," and I let that happen. And as I left this office, it was a joyful recent PhD saying, "I'm happy to accept your offer." So, I mean, and then I was able to call her back quickly, and we're fine, and we're all set for the faculty in that area now. But the whole point is, I thought we're getting so nervous about being hacked or picking up the phone when it's when it's just a call that we don't want. And also all the various online and electronic, from the Target problems and, Target and things like that. So what should students do to have cyber safety, and to what degree do they have to take care of that on their devices? To what degree does Rio do that for them?
So one of the biggest things is to always be updating your devices, your software, stuff of that nature, because updates, if you don't update them, that's how a little exploit can become a big issue. We recently had some attacks on Windows 7 devices, on XP devices, that was using a very, very unknown exploit up until it was found. And once it was found, it was causing massive issues.
Okay.
I'd like to kind of stretch on that. What happens with your payment card when you go to a gas station? Would you like us to take a break, Pat?
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay. We'll be right back after this commercial interruption. Okay, welcome back. We're talking about cybersecurity and a number of different issues concerning that. Caleb has just told us, in case you weren't here before the commercial, that we should always update things. And I know that we've been counseled not to open up emails if we don't recognize, not to answer a cell phone if we don't recognize. Are there other guidelines that our students and faculty and staff, the people of the Rio community, should know?
Let's split it into two parts. Your personal safety about not being subject to frauds when somebody calls you at home and says, your computer's infected. Don't be a sucker for that. Somebody down the street says, we just got done doing somebody's driveway, we have some extra materials. Those are other types of frauds. Credit card fraud on skimmers off of gas pumps and stuff. But on personal computer security, Caleb's absolutely right. Most of the exploits that happen are because they are taking advantage of weaknesses in the software systems that we have on our devices. And those of us that have multiple devices are finding us taking hours and hours of our lives keeping them up to date. Windows updates, Mac updates, iPhone updates. Just this week, my iPhone did a complete system update. Have you done yours?
No, and it's asking me to do it, but it sounds like I should do it.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So the other part is your personal behavior. You have to really be cautious about what that content is that's coming in emails. Are they trying to fool you? Is it a phish, P-H-I-S-H, trying to fish around to see if they can get you to click on something that will infect that computer, possibly with one of those malware exploits to an operating system flaw? It's a pretty big subject, and I would encourage everybody to tune into Tech Talk, which is, Pat, 2 o'clock on the third Wednesday of each month, because we have a panel of experts that meet here every month to cover all those topics and what's in the news. Shameless plug.
Nice work to plug the other program. That's great. I think one of the extraordinary things about living in this part of the country is how physically beautiful it is. And we have 3 off-site centers. We are here in Rio Grande and Gallia County. We have off-site centers in Jackson, about 20 miles away, in Rio Grande, in MacArthur, which is Vinton County, about 45 minutes away, and also in Pomeroy in Meigs County, which is also about 45 minutes away in a different direction. And you've got the beautiful map there right now. It's a beautiful drive to any of the campuses, but we're really not that close together. And again, we only have 4 people in the office. So Kingsley and his folks have just done a remarkable job getting out to the off-sites, because as a provost, one of my concerns is, and one thing I have to continue to prove both to Columbus, the state entities, and also to the Higher Learning Commission in Chicago, is that our students are getting comparable learning outcomes in all sections of a class and in all delivery modalities, whether it's online, blended, or face-to-face. And we cannot do that without a really strong C and N support service. So can you tell us what some of the struggles are? Because I know you have various different, we have one kind of mannequin at Jackson. We're going to have different brand of mannequins on main campus. You've got different areas, I assume different bandwidth capabilities. Can you talk about some of the challenges that you folks help us with so that we can teach and work seamlessly with our students?
So regardless of which campus it is, all of them have the same type of internet connection. All of them have the same Wi-Fi setups, which means that it's fairly seamless for a student to go from one to the next. Like during the summer when I was here, I had a class one time that was at the Meg Center. Then the next thing I had was a class over here at this, our main campus here. And it was a seamless transition because of that.
I'm amazed too sometimes of what our devices remember. My laptop, I know, was not new when I came here. It's about 6 or 7 years old. Is that right? I've been here about 3.5 years.
We broke it in for you.
Did you? Okay, yeah. But the point I'd make is I'm amazed when I go back to places and it remembers. For example, I visited my brother in Eastern PA last weekend. I haven't visited him since last summer. And my laptop remembered
The wireless connection.
wireless connection in his house and the arcane 14-digit password. And I said, no, I'm sure I'm going to need it again. And I booted it up and voop, I'm right there and I'm reading my emails. So it's incredible to me. I mean, it had the memory of a collie dog, and it's a dumpy 7-year-old, it's not a dumpy, it's a 7-year-old banged up laptop. I was very impressed.
We broke it in. We didn't break the laptop.
Okay.
Wireless connections are persistent unless you specifically tell them to be forgotten. So if you've gone to a vacation spot, the hotel, the Wi-Fi hotspots, those types of things do get remembered. And for this particular trip, it's nice that you returned to see your brother and have that connection. We've got wireless connections on campus. And for students that would connect their laptop or their mobile phone and device, they would come here or to Meigs, Jackson, or to Pomeroy, and they would be able to configure their device and travel to any one of our sites. Caleb's absolutely right. All of those sites have the same type of connections. And we have one that's called EduRoam. And EduRoam is a type of wireless connection that is really better than our Rio Secure and Rio Guest. It is truly on steroids. It has the ability to do federated identity management and authentication so that if you were on another EduRoam location, whether it's our neighboring Shawnee State, Ohio University, Marshall, or you've traveled to Barcelona in Spain, or you've gone to Wales on one of our exchange programs, you would find that EduRoam picks up. It then has a connection back here to Rio Grande. Our campus authenticates you and says, let that person on your network. And it's truly amazing. The fact that people can bring their devices to our campus and use them, I think, is a tremendous plus. One of the things that kind of ties into Caleb's mention of keeping your systems updated, we realize that a lot of our students live in rural areas and don't have the type of internet connections that they need to support learning. That's why we have computer labs in each of those academic centers. It's why we have the library. It's why we have the Jenkins Center here on campus. We want you to use our labs or to come to our campus with your device and sit in one of the public areas like a library and to get your academic work done. One of the other things that comes into this is that we've talked about devices, the software. A second ago, Pat put up a slide of our Microsoft Office 365. I'd like to return to that. The communications that we use is based upon Microsoft's ecosystem. Some people use Google, some people use Microsoft, some people may have a Yahoo email account. We use Microsoft's, and our email addresses follow the RioNet username and RioNet password combination. We don't display people's usernames in there for a sensitivity for FERPA violations. We don't want to show people's names. But there's a lot of apps that are built into the browser interface of Office 365. Word, Excel, PowerPoint complement the online storage of OneDrive so that a student, even if they don't have a computer and they're using somebody else's, they can get their work done from any internet location. And these are also available on mobile platforms as well. The other apps all have different uses both in industry and in education. We won't go into that, but I'd like to call your attention to the upper right-hand corner. Install Office 2016. If you have a computer or you use one a lot and need to install the Office, you can get that. Under the gear, there's a settings area for Office 365. We want you to have the latest software so that you can get your stuff done.
And that's a great conclusion, because you've just provided an answer for one of the big questions I always get at orientations: is Rio, Google, or Microsoft campus for email and web apps? And we are, in fact, a Microsoft campus. And so the students don't need to purchase Microsoft Office, though, right?
Nope, they get it by coming to Rio Grande and having our subscription copy.
That's great. That's great. Kingsley Meyer, Caleb Bevan, Campus Computing and Networking at University of Rio Grande and Rio Grande Community College, except no substitutes. These are great CCNN support people. Thank you very much for being with us. Hope to see you on one of our campuses soon.